Marcus Thompson had always been a quiet neighbor. He worked from home as a software developer, kept his lawn trimmed to perfection, and never caused any trouble in the Willowbrook Gardens subdivision. His small ranch-style house sat at the end of Maple Street, where the mail truck made its final stop each day around 3 in the afternoon. Everything changed when Linda Hartwell moved into the house directly across from him. Linda was a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair and an attitude that could freeze water. Within a week of moving in, she'd already introduced herself to Marcus as the newly elected president of the Homeowners Association, a position she claimed to have won unanimously, though Marcus later discovered only 4 people had voted. Linda's first official act was to walk around the neighborhood with a clipboard, documenting what she called violations of community standards. She measured grass heights with a ruler, photographed slightly faded mailboxes, and took notes about the color variations in different houses' shutters. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as she spent nearly an hour examining his property, writing furiously on her clipboard. The following Tuesday, Marcus found an official-looking letter in his mailbox. The HOA letterhead was adorned with an eagle logo that Linda had apparently designed herself. The letter informed him that his garden gnome was in violation of Section 12.4 of the Community Guidelines, which prohibited frivolous lawn ornaments that detract from the sophisticated aesthetic of Willowbrook Gardens. Marcus had to read the sentence 3 times before he could believe it was real. His garden gnome, a cheerful little ceramic figure named Gus that his late grandmother had given him, had been sitting beside his front steps for over 2 years. Previous HOA presidents had never mentioned it, and several neighbors had even complimented the whimsical touch it added to his otherwise modest landscaping. But Linda's letter was clear. The gnome had to go within 72 hours or Marcus would face a $50 fine. Marcus decided to pay Linda a visit. He knocked on her door that evening, holding the letter in his hand and hoping to reason with her. Linda answered wearing a crisp white blouse and holding what appeared to be another clipboard. Before Marcus could speak, she launched into a speech about property values and the importance of maintaining standards that would make their neighborhood the envy of the entire city. When Marcus finally managed to explain that the gnome had sentimental value and asked if they could work out some kind of compromise, Linda's expression hardened. She informed him that rules were rules, and exceptions could not be made for anyone, regardless of their personal attachments. She suggested that if Marcus wanted to display family heirlooms, he should consider putting them inside his house where they belonged. The conversation ended with Linda closing the door firmly, leaving Marcus standing on her front porch with a growing sense that his peaceful life in Willowbrook Gardens was about to become significantly more complicated. He looked across the street at his house where Gus the gnome sat innocently beside the front steps, and made a decision that would set in motion a series of events neither he nor Linda could have anticipated. The gnome incident was just the beginning. Over the next month, Linda seemed to find new reasons to cite Marcus for various infractions. His trash can was placed 6 inches too close to the street. His house numbers were apparently the wrong shade of black according to the newly updated guidelines that Linda had written herself. Most ridiculously, she claimed that his doormat contained too many colors and created visual chaos that disturbed the harmony of the neighborhood. Marcus paid the fines grudgingly, each $50 penalty eating into his modest budget. He tried appealing to other HOA board members, but discovered that Linda had somehow managed to stack the board with her cronies from the country club. Every appeal was denied, often with smug little notes about the importance of following community standards. The real trouble started when Marcus began receiving packages more frequently. His elderly aunt from Portland had started sending him care packages filled with homemade cookies and coffee from her favorite local roastery. His hobby of collecting vintage camera equipment meant regular deliveries from online sellers. Most importantly, he had recently started a small side business selling custom computer cables, which required him to order specialized materials and components several times a week. At first, the packages went missing occasionally. Marcus assumed it was the usual delivery mishaps that happened in any neighborhood. The mail carrier sometimes delivered to the wrong address, or packages were left in spots where they could be easily stolen by random passers-by. But as the frequency increased, Marcus began to notice a pattern. The packages that went missing were always the ones delivered when he wasn't home. More specifically, They disappeared on days when he had mentioned to neighbors that he would be out running errands or attending his weekly chess club meeting at the library. The timing seemed too convenient to be coincidental, and Marcus started paying closer attention to the activities on his street during delivery hours. His suspicions were confirmed on a Thursday afternoon when he decided to work from his living room instead of his usual home office. The mail truck arrived at exactly 3:15, and Marcus watched as the driver placed a small package containing camera lens filters on his front porch. The driver honked his horn briefly, a signal that had become their informal system for letting Marcus know a delivery had arrived. 20 minutes later, Marcus saw Linda emerge from her house wearing a bright pink jogging outfit and sneakers. She began what appeared to be a casual walk around the neighborhood, but her route took her directly past Marcus's front porch. She glanced around carefully, and when she thought no one was watching, she quickly scooped up the package and tucked it under her arm before continuing her jog back to her house. Marcus couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Linda Hartwell, the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards, was stealing his packages in broad daylight. He sat in stunned silence for several minutes, trying to process the audacity of what he had seen. This wasn't just about HOA violations anymore. This was theft, and it explained why so many of his deliveries had mysteriously vanished over the past few weeks. That evening, Marcus called the local police to report the theft. Officer Rodriguez listened politely to his story, but explained that without video evidence or witnesses, there wasn't much they could do. Package theft was unfortunately common, and unless Marcus could prove that Linda had taken his deliveries, the police couldn't take action based solely on his word against hers. The officer suggested that Marcus consider installing a security camera or having packages delivered to his workplace instead. While the advice was practical, it frustrated Marcus that he had to change his routine and spend money on surveillance equipment because his neighbor was a thief. He thanked Officer Rodriguez and hung up the phone, already formulating a plan that would give him the evidence he needed to expose Linda's criminal behavior. Marcus spent the weekend researching security cameras and doorbell systems online. He settled on a wireless camera that could be disguised among the plants near his front door, along with a motion-activated doorbell camera that would provide multiple angles of his porch area. The entire system cost him nearly $300, money he had been saving for a vacation, but he considered it an investment in catching Linda red-handed. Installing the cameras proved trickier than expected. Marcus had to carefully position the hidden camera so it would capture anyone approaching his porch while remaining invisible from the street. The doorbell camera was easier to install, but he had to run the wiring through his attic and down through the wall, a project that took most of Sunday afternoon and left him covered in dust and insulation. While setting up the surveillance system, Marcus discovered something interesting in his research about package theft laws. In their state, stealing mail or packages was considered a felony if the total value exceeded $200. Given that Linda had been taking his deliveries for weeks, including some expensive camera equipment and electronic components, she had almost certainly crossed that threshold. Marcus also learned that he could set up what law enforcement called bait packages to catch thieves. The idea was simple. Order something inexpensive but trackable, then document when it was stolen to establish a pattern of theft. Some police departments even encourage this practice as a way to gather evidence against package thieves. On Monday morning, Marcus ordered a $20 phone case from an online retailer with guaranteed next-day delivery. He made sure to tell his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who was notorious for gossiping with everyone on the street, that he would be at an important client meeting all Tuesday afternoon and wouldn't be home until after 5. He knew that within hours this information would make its way to Linda through the neighborhood gossip network. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus parked his car 3 blocks away and walked back to his house through the wooded area behind his backyard. He slipped inside through his back door and positioned himself at his living room window with a pair of binoculars, ready to document Linda's theft in real time while his cameras recorded everything. The package arrived at 2:45. The mail carrier placed it prominently on Marcus's front porch and honked the horn as usual before driving away. Marcus's phone buzzed with notifications from both security cameras, confirming that they had recorded the delivery. Now all he had to do was wait. At 3:20, Linda emerged from her house wearing the same pink jogging outfit she had worn during the previous theft. She began her fake exercise routine, stretching elaborately in her driveway before starting what she probably thought looked like a casual jog around the neighborhood. Marcus watched through his binoculars as she approached his house, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and then quickly grabbed the package from his porch. This time, however, Marcus was ready. He had his phone in his hand, recording Linda's theft through his window while his security cameras captured everything from multiple angles. He watched as she tucked the package under her arm and jogged back to her house, probably thinking she had gotten away with another successful theft. But Marcus had one more surprise waiting for Linda. Unknown to her, the phone case he had ordered came with a GPS tracking device designed to help people locate lost phones. Marcus had specifically chosen this product because the tracking chip would allow him to prove that his stolen package was currently sitting in Linda's house. That evening, Marcus downloaded all the footage from his security cameras and compiled it into a comprehensive video file showing Linda stealing his package. He also took screenshots from the GPS tracking app, clearly showing that his package was located at Linda's address. Finally, he had Officer Rodriguez's card from their previous conversation, and he was ready to present law enforcement with irrefutable evidence of Linda's criminal activity. As Marcus prepared his evidence package, he couldn't help but smile at the irony of the situation. Linda had spent so much time trying to catch him in minor HOA violations, but she'd been caught committing actual crimes. Tomorrow, he would turn the tables on his troublesome neighbor and show her that actions have consequences. Wednesday morning, Marcus called Officer Rodriguez and explained that he now had video evidence of his neighbor stealing packages. The officer seemed genuinely interested this time and agreed to meet Marcus at his house that afternoon to review the footage. When Rodriguez arrived, he brought along Detective Sarah Mills, who specialized in property crimes and had been investigating a rash of package thefts in the area. Marcus showed them both security camera videos, the GPS tracking data, and his detailed log of missing packages over the past month. Detective Mills was particularly impressed with the quality of the evidence and told Marcus that this was one of the most well-documented package theft cases she had ever seen. The GPS tracking alone was enough to obtain a search warrant for Linda's house, but before they could proceed with formal charges, Detective Mills suggested that Marcus might want to confront Linda directly and give her a chance to return his stolen property voluntarily. Sometimes, she explained, people who got caught stealing packages would cooperate to avoid prosecution, especially if they were first-time offenders who had gotten carried away with a bad decision. Marcus wasn't particularly interested in giving Linda a break, considering how she had treated him over the HOA violations, but he agreed to try the diplomatic approach first. That evening, he walked across the street and knocked on Linda's door, carrying printouts of the security camera footage and GPS tracking data. Linda answered the door with her usual stern expression, but Marcus noticed her confidence falter when she saw the papers in his hands. He calmly explained that he had video evidence of her stealing his packages and showed her the crystal-clear footage of her taking the phone case from his porch. He also showed her the GPS data proving that his package was currently in her house. Linda's reaction was not what Marcus had expected. Instead of denying the theft or showing remorse, she became indignant and defensive. She claimed that packages left on porches were abandoned property, and that she was actually doing the neighborhood a favor by preventing real thieves from taking them. She insisted that she had planned to return everything eventually, once she figured out a way to do it without admitting she had taken anything. When Marcus pointed out that stealing mail was a federal crime and package theft was a felony, Linda's attitude shifted from defensive to threatening. She reminded him that she was the HOA president and had the power to make his life very difficult if he pursued this matter. She mentioned that she had been documenting what she called suspicious activities at his house, including the fact that he received an unusual number of packages, which she claimed might indicate some kind of illegal business operation. The conversation grew heated when Linda suggested that Marcus was probably involved in something shady, and that her investigation of his packages was justified neighborhood watch activity. She accused him of harassment and threatened to file a restraining order against him if he continued to bother her with his false accusations. Marcus realized that Linda was completely delusional about her criminal behavior and had convinced herself that she was somehow the victim in this situation. There would be no reasoning with her. No voluntary return of stolen property, and certainly no apology for the weeks of theft she had committed. If anything, she seemed to be doubling down on her entitlement and threatening to escalate their conflict even further. The conversation ended when Linda slammed the door in Marcus's face, leaving him standing on her porch once again. But this time, instead of feeling frustrated or helpless, Marcus felt a sense of clarity. Linda had made her choice, and now he would make his. He walked back to his house and immediately called Detective Mills to report that the diplomatic approach had failed and that he wanted to proceed with pressing full charges against his neighbor. That night, as Marcus lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened, he realized that Linda's threats about making his life difficult had given him an idea. If she wanted to play games and escalate their conflict, he could think of a few creative ways to respond that would teach her an unforgettable lesson about the consequences of stealing from her neighbors. The legal system would handle the criminal charges, but Marcus was starting to formulate a plan for some poetic justice that would make Linda think twice before messing with anyone else in the neighborhood. The search warrant was executed on Friday morning. Marcus watched from his kitchen window as Detective Mills and two uniformed officers knocked on Linda's door with the legal paperwork. Linda's shocked expression was visible even from across the street when she realized that Marcus had actually followed through with pressing charges. The search of Linda's house revealed a treasure trove of stolen packages hidden in her garage and spare bedroom. Besides Marcus's missing items, the officers found packages belonging to at least 6 other neighbors, some dating back over 2 months. Apparently, Linda had been stealing mail throughout the entire subdivision, not just targeting Marcus. The total value of the stolen merchandise exceeded $1,500, which elevated the charges to a serious felony. Detective Mills called Marcus that afternoon to update him on the search results. She explained that Linda was now facing multiple counts of mail theft, package theft, and receiving stolen property. The district attorney's office was treating it as an organized criminal enterprise rather than isolated incidents, which meant Linda could face significant jail time if convicted. But Marcus wasn't satisfied with just legal consequences. Linda's threats and arrogant attitude during their confrontation had convinced him that she needed to learn a more personal lesson about respecting her neighbors. He began researching creative revenge ideas online, looking for something that would be memorable but not illegal or dangerous. That's when Marcus discovered an online company called Skunk Packages Unlimited that specialized in what they called aromatic justice deliveries. For a surprisingly reasonable fee, they would send carefully designed packages containing various foul-smelling substances to any address. The most popular option was their Skunk Supreme package, which contained a concentrated essence that smelled exactly like a skunk's defensive spray, but was completely harmless and legal to mail. The website explained that their products were often used for pranks, revenge scenarios, and teaching lessons to people who needed to learn about consequences. They guaranteed that their skunk essence would create an unforgettable smell that would linger for days but wouldn't cause any permanent damage to property or health. Customer reviews were overwhelmingly positive, with many people sharing stories about using the service to get back at inconsiderate neighbors, cheating partners, and workplace bullies. Marcus spent the weekend reading testimonials and learning about the different delivery options. The company offered several levels of intensity, from mild odors that would clear up in a few hours to industrial-strength concentrations that could make a house uninhabitable for weeks. They also provided various delivery methods, including packages that would release their payload when opened, or time-delayed devices that would activate hours after delivery. After careful consideration, Marcus settled on a medium-intensity skunk package with a time delay activation. He wanted Linda to receive the package and have time to take it inside her house before it activated, ensuring maximum impact. The timing device would release the concentrated skunk smell exactly 6 hours after delivery, giving Marcus the perfect alibi since he would be at his chess club meeting when the package activated. The ordering process was surprisingly professional. Marcus provided Linda's address and selected a generic business name for the return address to avoid suspicion. He paid extra for guaranteed delivery on a specific day and time, ensuring that Linda would be home when the package arrived. The company even offered tracking information so Marcus could monitor the delivery progress. Marcus chose the following Tuesday for the delivery, exactly 1 week after Linda had stolen his bait package. The timing felt poetic, and it would give him the weekend to make sure all the legal proceedings were moving forward properly. Detective Mills had told him that formal charges would likely be filed on Monday, which meant Linda would receive her legal consequences and her aromatic surprise almost simultaneously. As Marcus completed his order, he couldn't help but smile at the thought of Linda's reaction when her house filled with the overwhelming stench of skunk spray. After weeks of stealing packages and terrorizing the neighborhood with ridiculous HOA violations, she was about to learn that some packages contain more than just merchandise. Sometimes they contain justice, served with a side of unforgettable smell that would remind her of her crimes every time she walked into her house. Tuesday morning arrived with perfect timing. Marcus received notification that formal charges had been filed against Linda for multiple counts of package theft and mail fraud. The local newspaper had even picked up the story, running a small article about the HOA president, who was arrested for stealing packages from the very neighborhood she was supposed to protect. At exactly 2 o'clock, the delivery truck arrived with Marcus's special package for Linda. He watched from his home office window as the driver placed the innocent-looking box on Linda's front porch. The package was professionally wrapped with a return address from Neighborhood Watch Supplies LLC, a fake company name that Marcus thought added a nice touch of irony to the situation. Linda emerged from her house about 10 minutes later to collect her mail. She picked up the package and examined it suspiciously, probably wondering if this was another trap set by Marcus or the police. After a few moments of hesitation, she took the package inside her house, unknowingly starting the 6-hour countdown to her aromatic surprise. Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on work, but he kept checking his watch as the hours ticked by. At 7:30, he left for his weekly chess club meeting at the library, making sure that several neighbors saw him, leaving so he would have witnesses to his whereabouts. When the skunk package activated, the chess club meeting was particularly difficult to concentrate on that evening. Marcus found himself constantly checking his phone for the time, knowing that Linda's surprise would activate at exactly 8 o'clock. His opponent, an elderly man named Harold who lived 2 streets over, noticed his distraction and asked if everything was all right. Marcus simply smiled and said he was expecting some interesting developments in his neighborhood that evening. Harold chuckled and mentioned that he had heard about the package theft scandal involving the HOA president, adding that it was about time someone stood up to Linda's ridiculous power trips. At 8:15, Marcus's phone began buzzing with text messages from neighbors. The first message was from Mrs. Chen, who lived next door to Linda. She wrote that she had noticed a terrible smell coming from Linda's house and wondered if there had been some kind of gas leak or sewage problem. Within minutes, Marcus received similar messages from 3 other neighbors, all reporting the overwhelming stench emanating from Linda's property. By 9 o'clock, when Marcus's chess game ended, his phone had received over a dozen messages about the mysterious smell at Linda's house. Several neighbors had called the gas company to report a possible leak, and Mrs. Patterson from the end of the street mentioned that she could smell something awful even from 2 houses away. Marcus drove home slowly, taking the long route through the neighborhood to build suspense for his arrival. As he turned onto Maple Street, he could see Linda's house in the distance, and even from several hundred feet away, he could detect the unmistakable aroma of concentrated skunk spray wafting through the evening air. Linda was standing in her front yard wearing a face mask and talking animatedly on her phone. Several neighbors had gathered at a safe distance, covering their noses and speculating about what could have caused such an overwhelming stench. Marcus parked in his driveway and walked over to join the impromptu neighborhood gathering, doing his best to look concerned and surprised. Mrs. Chen immediately approached Marcus and explained that the smell had started suddenly around 8 o'clock. She mentioned that Linda had been running around her house opening windows and doors, apparently trying to air out the interior. The gas company had already been called and dispatched a technician, but they hadn't found any gas leaks or mechanical problems. That could explain the odor. Marcus nodded sympathetically and suggested that maybe Linda had accidentally disturbed a skunk somewhere on her property. Several neighbors agreed that this seemed like the most logical explanation, though they couldn't understand how a skunk could have gotten inside her house to create such an intense smell throughout the entire building. Linda spotted Marcus in the crowd and immediately stormed over, her face red with anger even behind her protective mask. She accused him of somehow being responsible for the terrible smell in her house, though she couldn't explain how he could have accomplished such a thing while he was clearly at his chess club, meeting with multiple witnesses. Marcus maintained his innocent expression and offered to help Linda figure out what had happened. He suggested that she might want to call a professional cleaning service, since skunk odor was notoriously difficult to remove and could linger for weeks without proper treatment. Linda's eyes widened with horror as she realized the implications of what he was saying. As the evening progressed and the smell showed no signs of diminishing, Linda was forced to pack a bag and stay at a hotel. Her house remained uninhabitable for over a week, during which time the entire neighborhood was reminded daily of the consequences of stealing packages from their neighbors. The story spread throughout the subdivision and beyond, becoming a local legend about karma, justice, and the importance of treating your neighbors with respect. Marcus never admitted to sending the skunk package, but his satisfied smile whenever the topic came up told the whole story. Linda eventually moved away from Willowbrook Gardens, unable to face the daily reminders of her humiliation. The new HOA president was a reasonable man who focused on actual community improvements rather than petty harassment. And Marcus's garden gnome returned to its place of honor beside his front steps, where it remains to this day, a cheerful reminder that sometimes justice comes in the most unexpected packages.